In chemistry, a reaction only happens when the conditions are right. It's no different in real estate. Welcome to the Alkaline Reaction, a podcast from Alkaline Advisors, where we break down the deals, partners, and capital structures that turn opportunities into outcomes. I'm Spencer Carenti, and today's reaction, recourse versus non-recourse debt. I want to start with a man at a closing table. I've watched some version of this scene play out more times than I can count. So let's call him what he is, a good sponsor, on a good deal, on what is probably the best day of his year. The building is exactly what he said it would be. The market agrees with him. The lender agrees with him. There's a stack of documents in front of him, and somewhere in that stack is a single page that asks him to do one small thing: sign personally, guarantee the loan. And because the deal is good, and because everyone in the room is smiling, and because signing gets him the leverage that makes the numbers sing, he signs. It takes 4 seconds. He doesn't feel it. 18 months later, the market has stopped agreeing with him, and that signature, the one that took 4 seconds, is now the most important thing he has ever done. It is the difference between losing a building and losing everything behind it. That's what this episode is really about. Not a loan structure, a signature, and the moment a person decides whether to make it. Here's the pattern I've come to believe is true, and it's one of those patterns that shows up again and again once you're trained to see it. The people who get hurt by recourse almost never get hurt because they didn't understand what it was. They get hurt because they thought it was a question with two answers: recourse or non-recourse, pick a side, when it was never a choice between two things. It was a question about themselves. The amateur asks, which loan is better? The person who has done this for 30 years asks something quieter and far more uncomfortable. What am I actually willing to put behind this? And what happens to me if I'm wrong? Everything worth knowing about this subject lives in the distance between those two questions. So let me tell you what the two instruments actually are, and then let me tell you what I think the people who do this well are really asking when they sit at that table. Non-recourse debt is the gentler of the two. If the deal fails, the lender's remedy is the building and only the building. They can take the asset, but they cannot reach past it. Not to your home, not to your savings, not to the other deals that have nothing to do with this one. There's a wall, and the wall holds. You can lose everything you put into the deal and still walk out of it a whole person. Recourse debt takes the wall down. If the deal fails and the building doesn't cover what you owe, the lender can come for you personally to make up the difference. That difference has a clinical little name, a deficiency, and there is nothing clinical about what it does to a life. Non-recourse caps your loss at what you put in. Recourse doesn't cap your loss at anything. And so you arrive at the only honest question in the whole subject. If one of these protects you and the other one can follow you home, why would any sane person ever sign the second one? Hold on to that, because the answer is the entire episode. Over the years, I've noticed that the sponsors who survive this decision, not the ones who got lucky, the ones who survive it on purpose, tend to ask themselves the same handful of things in roughly the same order. They don't call it a framework. They'd probably be a little embarrassed to write it down, but it's there every time, and it goes something like this. The first thing they ask is whether the deal even needs them. Before anything else, can I get the money I need without putting myself behind it? Because if the answer is yes, if a non-recourse loan covers the plan on terms that work, then you take the protection and you don't look back. You don't pay for risk you don't have to carry. This is where a great many deals quietly end, and they end well. A solid asset, durable income, sensible leverage. The wall stays up, and nobody ever has to be brave. The trouble starts on the deals where the answer is no, where non-recourse alone doesn't get you enough to make the thing work. That's the fork in the road, and the people who get hurt are usually the ones who don't even notice they've reached it. The second thing they ask is what exactly the signature is buying. Because recourse is never a gift to the lender. It's a trade. You give them a claim on yourself, and in return, you get something. Usually more leverage, more proceeds against the same building, and sometimes a better rate because you've just made their loan safer. I've always thought The clearest way to understand a lender is this: they don't finance your optimism. They finance their own protection. When you sign recourse, you're handing them a second way to get paid. The building first and you second. So the question turns sharp. How badly do I actually need what this signature buys? If it unlocks the leverage that makes the deal possible, that's a reason a grown adult can stand behind. If it's only shaving a few basis points off the rate, if you're putting your house on the line to feel clever about pricing, that's not a reason. That's vanity wearing the costume of strategy. The good ones know the difference, and they only spend their personal exposure on things they genuinely cannot buy any other way. The third thing they ask is the one most people skip, and it's the one that matters most. Can I actually survive being wrong? Up to this point, it's been a conversation about a deal. Now it becomes a conversation about a life. The honest sponsor sits down and underwrites his own balance sheet the way the lender underwrites it, coldly. If this goes bad and a deficiency lands on me, what is the number? And can I absorb that number? Not comfortably. I mean survivably. Will I still be standing? And here is the cruel little joke buried inside this whole business. The deals that most need recourse to pencil are very often the same deals most likely to go wrong. More leverage, thinner margin, more that has to go right. So you are most tempted to bet yourself precisely on the deal where the bet is most likely to be called. If a realistic bad outcome would erase you, the answer is no. And it doesn't matter how beautiful the deal looks in the sunshine of the closing table. A deal that can end you is not a deal. It's a wager you happen to be standing next to. And the last thing they ask is whether this is a deal worth betting themselves on at all. Because the same word means wildly different things on different deals. Recourse on a stabilized building that already throws off cash is a modest thing. The income is real, the odds of a shortfall are low. Recourse on a piece of dirt with no entitlements and a 2-year construction timeline is a different animal entirely, even though the document says the same word. On those deals, the ground up, the heavy transitional ones, recourse and a completion guarantee are simply the price of admission because there's no stabilized income for the lender to lean on yet. So the question becomes one of conviction. Is the risk in this specific thing worth standing behind with my own name? Sometimes the honest answer is yes. And sometimes the honest answer is that this deal is too fragile to guarantee, and the wise move is to pass or to go back and rebuild it. Now, I have to tell you about the trapdoor, because there's a cruelty in this that I find almost novelistic, and it catches the careful people, not the reckless ones. Remember the first question: did I get non-recourse? And the relief of answering yes? Almost no non-recourse loan is truly non-recourse. Nearly every one of them carries something called bad boy carve-outs. A carve-out is a short list of sins that, the instant you commit one, collapse the wall and turn your protected loan into a personal one. Fraud, lying on the application, taking the building's cash and spending it somewhere it wasn't supposed to go, quietly transferring the property or the ownership behind the lender's back, piling on debt you weren't allowed to take, and the one that gets people filing for bankruptcy to slow down a foreclosure. Now read that list again and notice who it describes. It describes a desperate person. It describes exactly the man we started with, 18 months in, watching his deal die, reaching for the cash to keep the lights on, reaching for the bankruptcy filing to buy a little time. The carve-outs are written precisely for the moment a sponsor is most tempted to do the human thing. And the moment he does it, the protection he was counting on evaporates. He turns his own non-recourse loan into a recourse loan with his own hands at the worst possible moment while trying to save himself, which is the deeper truth of the whole subject. Non-recourse was never a fortress you got to live inside. It was a condition. You're protected right up until the moment you behave like a man who needs protecting. The wall stands until you, in your panic, knock it down. Let me put numbers on it, because the numbers are how it stops being abstract. One deal, a value-add apartment building. $10 million to buy it, and the plan needs about $7 million in debt to work. Down one road, he stays behind the wall, non-recourse, but the lender will only lend $6 million that way, so he has to find an extra $1 million of equity to fill the hole. more of his investors' money in, a thinner return if it all works, and a wall that holds no matter what. Down the other road, he signs personally. Now the lender funds the full 7, less equity, a better return in the sunshine, and no wall at all. Then the sun goes behind a cloud. The lease-up drags. The renovation runs hot. Rates move against him right when he needs to refinance. The building, worth 10 on the best day of his year, is worth 7 now, and it sells or the lender takes it at 7. The man who stayed behind the wall owed 6. The building covers it. He loses the equity, and that is a genuinely bad day. But the loss stops at the edge of the property, and he goes home to a house that is still his. He lives to do another deal. The man who signed owed 7. After the cost of selling, the building hands the lender 6.5. There's $500,000 still owed, and now the lender turns, politely, and asks him for it, from his savings, from his house, from the deals that had nothing to do with this one. Same building, same market, same bad luck. One man lost a deal, the other lost the wall. And here's the thing I can never quite get past. The second man wasn't a fool. He didn't sign out of greed or carelessness. He signed because it was the only way to get the leverage that made the deal work in the first place. The very structure he reached for to make the deal possible was the structure that came for him when it wasn't. That's not a story about a bad sponsor. It's a story about how the thing that helps you up is sometimes the same thing that pulls you under. So, what do you actually take from all of this? Not recourse bad, non-recourse good. That's the bumper sticker, and bumper stickers get people killed in this business. The truth is that recourse isn't good or bad. It's a threshold. It's a perfectly rational thing to sign at the exact moment the leverage it unlocks is worth more than the personal risk it imposes, and not 1 inch past the point where you could still survive being wrong. The 4 questions the good ones ask are really just one question wearing 4 coats. Does the deal even need me? What is my signature buying? Can I survive being wrong? And is this thing worth betting myself on at all? And beneath all of it sits the trap door. The reminder that even the protection you think you bought is only as good as your conduct on your worst day. The tragedy of the man at the closing table isn't that he didn't know what recourse was. He knew. It's that he learned where his own threshold was only after he had already stepped across it. Almost everyone learns it that way. The whole point of doing this well is to learn it the cheap way, on paper, before the pen ever touches the page. That's the work we do at Alkaline Advisors. We sit on the same side of the table as the sponsor, and we run the bad day before it happens. We model the deficiency before the signature, not after, and we pressure test the exact downside that would trigger it. Because the deal is won or lost in the structure and the downside, not the headline return. That's today's reaction. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and join us next time as we continue breaking down the commercial real estate industry. I'm Spencer Carenti, and thank you for your time.